So we are pleased today to announce one of our guests that's coming back for many, many times. She's been with us several times before. We have Geraldine Berry on the line with us today, the founder of SJREI. Geraldine, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for spending the time. For those that listen to the show, Geraldine has been on several times, and that will not change because she has put together a wonderful organization here in the San Jose, Silicon Valley area, SJREI. We'll talk a little bit about that. But brings just the expertise that we look for. And I'm excited today because we're going to talk a lot about investment real estate, what's going on in the market, both nationally, and then we're going to bring it and zero in on what's going on in our own backyard, which most of you are going to be interested in. So if you have any calls for Geraldine today, get your calls on the air. Give us a call anytime. We're here for an hour today with some breaks, of course, 1-800-516-1220. That's 1-800-516-1220. So let's dive right in. Geraldine, tell me a little bit about what's going on in general, real estate, both from a U.S. and investors and foreign investors perspective. What's going on in general here?
Well, real estate is becoming a high-yield investment that foreign and new investors alike are exploring, even the ones that were hurt in this recent downturn. The high cash flow, the high yield, and the cash flow is attractive to them. And so I have here the 10 most active markets internationally, which include 4 U.S. markets.
Great.
And those are New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Francisco in that order.
Wow.
So again, the U.S. is considered a safe haven when you consider the volatility in developing and emerging countries alike. And the euro crisis is ongoing, so that's an issue. But the big cities and the coasts are beginning to shine again here, and that's good news. We see here in California that the economy is picking up, especially in our area. And Robert Campbell, an economist that we frequently attends the SJREI, says that we live in a bubble up here in the Bay Area because we have this magical technology that is just it drives our economy.
Yes,
and right now we're on another, it seems, wild ride.
So you mentioned something which is a good point. Even the people that have been, really hurt before, challenged before, got burned before, however you want to call it, we're seeing people re-enter, get re-engaged, reinterested in this market because it's really the matrix, it's really the numbers, right? Isn't it, when you come right down to it, instead of, if you put the emotional issue aside, when you're especially an investment property, I say all the time, if you're not going to live there, if this is not going to be your primary residence, you really, really need to look at the numbers, right?
Exactly. And a high-yield, cash-flowing property is always attractive. I mean, the stock market certainly has its place in a portfolio, but if you buy something right and you have the underlying cash flow there to protect you, and you're not buying for appreciation, so you're not buying on a wing and a prayer, you really have a strategy, and it works. And rents, as we know, are escalating, and occupancy rates are very high. So we're seeing the hedge funds come on in and say we want to participate. And even Warren Buffett said if he could find a way to manage the properties, he would buy bulk houses. Houses in bulk.
Well, we have some people that could help Warren Buffett with that, don't we? You know some people that could help Warren with that.
Warren, he sticks with what he knows, which is smart too.
That's right. If you're just tuning in, you're listening to Joe Cucchiara. I'm your host for Real Estate 360, and we're really pleased today to have Geraldine Berry on the show, as we did several times. She's the founder of SJREI. So before we dive into a couple different topics here, Geraldine, tell us about those listeners out there about SJREI. Why don't you give it just a couple minutes how it got started and what you're doing today and the value that you bring to this group?
Well, SJREI, I founded it. We're in our 11th year now. I can hardly believe it.
Congratulations.
But we've been through the great upswing and the big downturn. And what we do at the SJREI is to provide information and monthly meetings for people who are interested in investing. And we are a membership organization, and we've been very effective because we've been able to help people in terms of 2005, for example. Joe, that we had some experts that presented at our organization and made a very compelling case that the market was changing and it was time to exit, especially outlying areas or areas that could potentially take a fall. And those were areas like Stockton. And So we are able to provide information like that. And I have a sister company, which is a publication, the REI Voice, and we provide information and just meaty articles for investors. And this is not a game. I mean, it's a business, and you have to treat it like that. And when you do, you can really reap the rewards. And they always said that location was the most important component of real estate investing, but timing, we know, is key too. And so we see now that we hit kind of a peak here for buying, and inventory has fallen off dramatically.
Yeah, it
so I think those who didn't purchase in the last couple of years are saying, okay, you know, when something comes up now, I'm definitely available.
Well, I would agree with you 100% timing, but you know, the other thing I'd like to add to that, in my opinion, is education and information. So I look back years ago, the first time I bought my home, and I'm sure people could reminisce back, and they've had great to hear all kinds of stories, but I had nothing like this, and the thing that really is important, timing certainly is there, but to educate and inform yourself, to sit down and plan and make a decision based on the numbers and planning for short-term, long-term. I mean, and that's what you get at a group like SJREI. That's what you get with an organization that, and I'll say it because I'm a big believer in the model too, and that model is we're not out trying to sell you marketing material or a six-stage video on how to. We're really inviting people as a group like you guys do, as an organization, to get to know each other, build relationships, and help each other succeed. Is that not correct?
Exactly. And Joe, when you think about it, every successful business is based on relationships. And there's only so much you can do on the web. So when you actually meet face-to-face and you take the time to connect and get to know somebody on a personal level, whether it's an accountant or a mortgage broker, and you develop a relationship, they're a resource for you. And that's what we need right now. I need a plumber for my house, and I need a roofer for one of my Antioch properties, and so I have the resources. I know who to call, and that's what makes life easier on you. If you have a community of people that you can tap into, if you hit a bump in the road, or if you need some solid advice, and we're not running with the crowd. We're generally a bit contrarian in our thinking.
That's right.
And I think that has worked well for us in the past.
So did you guys hear that out there? Geraldine's looking for a plumber and a roofer. I should
we need everybody. It's a team. It's a team effort, and it's a team sport. And I love when I can pick the phone up or refer someone to you, and I know you'll take care of them.
Absolutely.
You know, we all want that. We want to simplify our lives.
It is. It's very true. Okay, so again, if you have any questions for Geraldine, now's a great time to call. If you're driving around in your car, you're at home listening to us, give us a call if you have any questions. I do see a few emails come in, as I always do during the show, but I just want to let those know that I will answer those after the show is over. But if you want to give us a call, if you have any questions for Geraldine at all about the real estate, doesn't matter what topics we're talking about today, anything in the past, now, or whatever is on your mind, it's 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220. How about the diving back in here, Geraldine, inventory levels? We talked a little bit about that. I mean, there's the national numbers, and then there's the numbers here in the Bay Area too. What are we seeing there?
Well, so in all the metropolitan areas, there seems to be limited inventory. Supply is limited, and that's driving prices up. We have willing buyers, but declining number of houses. You know, that's a very unusual circumstance, but that's the current market condition. And if you look even at Santa Clara, we have a market reverting back to the mean, or getting back to equilibrium. And next year we will have a continued seller's market, but not the extreme seller's market that we had this year. Anybody could sell anything in most conditions were acceptable. Whereas a couple of years ago, you had to look good to sell, right? And so in Santa Clara, prices year to date for the last 12 months, they're up 15 to 18%.
Amazing.
That's an increase of 1.5% per month.
That's amazing.
And so normal would be 5 to 8%. So that's almost double that.
So would you tell someone right now, Geraldine, as they sit today in their car, their living room, in their office, would you then also say that now is a great time to buy?
I do think it's a very good time to buy if you could find something to buy. I think inventory is very limited. Like if you look at the days on market, even for last year, it was 80 days. Now it's 30 days. When you have that extreme kind of competitive market, there's a lack of inventory. So I think that will change in time. And what we noticed this month is that in October we had inventory go up. It usually goes down in September, down further in October. Well, it came back up in October for the simple reason that sellers who have properties have kind of said, hey, this looks like an opportunity to sell, and so they're putting their properties on the market regardless of the time of the year.
No, I agree. Well, as we wrap up this first segment, stick with us because we're going to talk about when we come back. We're with Geraldine Berry, and you're listening to Real Estate 360. I am your host, Joe Cucchiara. We're going to talk about principal reductions, short sales, the economy, the new 49er stadium. We have all kinds of great stuff to talk about. So stick with us. You're listening to Joe Cucchiara, Real Estate 360. It's on the dial, always the same place, KDOW 1220. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes.
For more information on today's program, visit RE360Radio.com. That's RE360Radio.com. Now, here's your host for Real Estate 360, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you again for joining us. You're listening to Real Estate 360. I am your host, Joe Cucchiara. And we are coming to you live Monday through Friday now from 3 to 4, so please make sure you tune in. Give us your feedback, give us your calls, email us, do whatever you would like to communicate with us. It's been a great, over the last year or so, it's been great to meet a lot of you. It's been great to interact with many of you. So keep those great emails, great questions coming, and we'll continue to provide as much value as we can going forward. If you want to get your calls on the air, it's always the same line here. It's 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220, and we'll bring back in for the complete hour today, which is going to be great. We have Geraldine with us for the complete time. So, Geraldine, you're still there, right?
I am.
We hope we didn't lose you. Okay, so let's dive into a couple different things because we have a lot of good information to talk about. So tell us, that people, clients, consumers are hearing about these principal reductions. I mean, B of A had an announcement a while back saying, we're going to take a couple 100,000 people and we're going to send them notices. We're going to automatically do a principal reduction on their seconds. There's a lot of this going on out there. So, what can you tell us about some of the things you're hearing of this principal reductions in the market?
Let's talk first about the benefits of doing that. So if you offer a principal reduction, what does that mean? The lender really kind of helps avoid a foreclosure and most probably even a short sale. So the owner is brought closer to break even, so the likelihood that they'll keep making payments and gain future appreciation, and it'll sort itself out. So it's kind of a good plan.
Right.
But so this is a quote from David Shear for Bloomberg, and he said, when Bank of America sent letters to 60,000 struggling homeowners offering to slice $150,000 off their loans, the lender got an unusual response from most of them: silence. So essentially, people aren't even opening up their mails.
That's amazing.
Their mail.
Yeah.
And never mind responding to a great offer like that. I would say if you're an investor, if you have a property, even a home, any bank letter that you receive right now, you should be reading because there's a potential it could be an offer for you.
Right.
Even in terms of they're offering people refinancing without doing any paperwork and all kinds of things. So don't just discard the mail when it comes because you could be throwing away $150,000 potentially.
Yeah, that's a great question, or I should say a response, because I could add to that a little bit in that I was one of the first people to really be very extremely critical of banks a couple of years ago about their lack of response, their really lack of care, and the way they handle or didn't handle a lot of these issues. And now I'll have to say, and I'm one to, I'll come back and really when someone's doing something better or makes an effort, I want to recognize that as well. In my opinion, the last 4 to 6 months or so, many of these banks have seemed to got their acts together. They have departments now that specifically handle this stuff, and they seem to be doing a little better job. And I think that, as you mentioned, it's a great point. Don't just throw your mail away when you get something from B of A, Wells Fargo, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. It might be something that could help you, number one. And number two, don't be afraid. I tell people, don't be afraid to pick up the phone and call that lender now. And even if you think you have no options, to get someone on the phone and say, hey, do I have any options? And re-engage in a conversation with them, because you just don't know. They may have something to help you with these days.
And things have changed over the last few years, where people who have stopped paying their mortgages feel a little bit entitled to stay there and not to pay and not to communicate and not to open letters. And I think, you know, they have a responsibility to respond to communications from the bank and just, you know, be straight with them and try and figure things out. I know that I had a couple that were supposed to move into one of my rentals, and they selected the carpet and everything and were very involved in the rehab. And then they called me and they said, listen, we've been living in our house for a year free, and we think we can get at least another year. So they were like, essentially, we're not gonna move into a rental. But I do think at some point you have to plan, but there's ways to save your property, and you may not even have to move out if you take action when you receive mail from the banks, because of the whole, you know, not having the paperwork in order for the banks. They're really trying to bend over backwards to really accommodate people. Yeah,
they are. I mean, I had just a couple of personal some clients that I've been helping. I normally wouldn't do that, but spent some more time with them. I'm seeing them being helped before they wouldn't even answer their calls. So I'm seeing some good things happening there. We're wrapping up this segment. This was a shorter one. We're going to come back, and we have a lot more to talk to with Geraldine. We're going to dive into short sales. We're going to talk about that 49er stater coming. That's really exciting, and in the market, in the buyers and sellers market, and much, much more. So stick with us. This is Real Estate 360. I am your host, Joe Cucchiara. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes.
So go to RE360Radio.com. That's RE360Radio.com.
Cattle DRE 01013947. Partners Mortgage is an equal housing lender, not a guarantee of specific loan terms, nor guarantee to lend.
For more information on today's program, visit RE360Radio.com. That's RE360Radio.com. Now, here's your host for Real Estate 360, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us today. I am Joe Cucchiara. I'm your host for Real Estate 360. Again, constant reminder, we are coming to you live Monday through Friday now from 3 to 4. So if you miss us on Saturdays, we're sorry about that. But join us Monday through Friday. Is a lot more of Real Estate 360 now. And because of that, we want to have more and more value, more and more information to offer you, the listener. If you want to get your calls on here, if you have any questions for Geraldine today, who is our guest, or if you have any questions for me, now's the time to give us a call. We have about another 15 or 20 minutes. It's 1-800-516-1220, 1-800-516-1220, and always be sure to visit our website when you get a chance. That's RE360Radio.com, RE360Radio.com. All right, Geraldine, let's jump in and chat a little bit about short sales. So it's been a big topic around everywhere, really nationally, in the last several years. But what can you tell us on what's going on in short sales? What do you see? Is there anything changing? What's happening?
The total inventory last year of distressed properties, that's REOs, real estate owned by banks, and short sales was 33%. This year to date, it's 10% of the market is distressed. So 10% is REOs and short sales. But the short sales are moving through the system quicker and diverting inventory from REOs. And the REO model is quickly evaporating due to lack of inventory. So those big REO brokers are going to be having to tweak their business model now.
Yeah, that brings up a good question. So people have some different theories on this. So you go from 33% or 30% to 10%. Now, is that just because there's less inventory, but is that because the lenders are strategically holding more off the market? I understand that there's going to be a release next quarter, or I should say the first quarter of 2013. So What's your perspective? Is it because they're holding more off?
We've been talking about the shadow inventory, and you know, most of us who are seriously immersed in the business don't believe there's a shadow inventory that is going to emerge at some point.
Really?
So for the last several years, we've been talking about the shadow inventory and anticipating the onslaught of properties that has never materialized. So I think now with the short sales, with the increased prices, possible short sales may hold on to their properties, because if the value increases and they've been able to hold on to the property, you know, there's no reason to short sell it.
So do you think the shadow inventory conversation and news has been a little bit overblown? Do you think it's not as realistic as people think, or is some of these articles would suggest?
I don't buy into the shadow inventory. I think the banks have, you know, they've worked through a lot of the product that has been in multiple cities throughout the country. People have bought bulk REOs, and we've had, you know, the big hedge funds coming in and being available to purchase bulk products, but there's not that many available. But that's the problem for the smaller investor, is that these bigger hedge funds can't come in and purchase any bigger inventories, bulk inventories that happen to be available. But I don't believe that there's a shadow inventory that's miraculously going to, you know, materialize. I think that, you know, prices are going back up now, so people who are in this area who have, you know, had problems with making their payments, the banks are working with them. If they're available, if the homeowner is available to work with the bank, you know, there's a lot of ways that they can get around that ever becoming an REO.
That's interesting. So, yeah, there's a lot to which a lot of people don't understand, and you know, you can't blame them. They're going about their life, and people are very busy, and they have their careers and their jobs and their families and their children, but behind the scenes, you had mentioned, and that goes on a lot, is that this inventory, you have big investors coming in and making deals with these asset managers and these lenders. So a lot of these properties don't even get close to hitting the streets for that reason.
Exactly. You have Carrington and some of these big, they have deep pockets. These guys are from Wall Street.
Right.
And, you know, what you wonder is, if they buy in multiple markets throughout the country, can they effectively manage those, which is what Warren Buffett said. You know, I do it if I had a management system in place, because you can actually lose a lot of money with maintenance issues and ineffective management in real estate, too. So that's definitely something that's a consideration.
Yes, it is. All right, well, we're going to take another quick break here, and we're going to move right along. Stick with us, though, because, again, we're going to finish up our conversation on short sales with Geraldine Berry with SJREI, and we're going to talk about some other economic news, including the 49ers Stadium coming to us soon. So stick with us. This is Joe Cucchiara with Real Estate 360. We'll be back with you in just a couple minutes. 23755, or go to RE360Radio.com.
County RE 01013947. Equal housing lender. Not a guarantee on specific loan terms, nor guarantee the land.
For more information on today's program, visit RE360Radio.com. That's RE360Radio.com. Now here's your host for Real Estate 360, Joe Cucchiara.
Thank you for joining us. Welcome back in. You're listening to Real Estate 360. I'm your host, Joe Cucchiara. We're joined today for the entire hour with Geraldine Berry, the founder of SJREI. We're talking anything and everything real estate, specifically a number of different topics. Short sales is one we left off with, and we'll finish off with that. And then we have some exciting stuff to talk about in terms of the new stadium coming here for the 49ers, and then some other stuff to chat about as well. So just wrapping up the short sale conversation, Geraldine, so obviously inventory is shrinking. I mean, we're seeing that all over the place. Certainly in the Bay Area we're seeing it. Homes are staying on the market. I mean, once something goes on the market, it's amazing. It really doesn't matter if it's an area with a home's $300,000 or $400,000, or if a home that's $1.5 or $2 million. If it's priced right, it is moving.
That's right. And even if it's not, there's multiple offers if it's in a desirable area.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. on my side, what I see, all these offers and these, actually it's becoming more frustrating because what we get what we get thrown at us is, well, you know, it's getting more competitive. Can we close this in 20 days, or can we get no appraisal contingencies, and all these craziness that people, and I have to rein them back in and say, wait a minute now. Why would you buy a property and not want to get it appraised? So it's some of that craziness out there again. They have to really be careful.
I know. And then you're expected to jump through hoops and make things happen, and it's very difficult to push the process through any quicker, and I don't envy you.
Well, and I think that's the reason, too, don't you think? I mean, I think the last I saw, 32% or something of transactions are still cash, all cash transactions.
Yes,
I know that...
a large percentage, and I was telling you about a study that was done by Bigger Pockets, and what they said in 2011, investors purchased 1.23 million homes.
Wow.
And so what they determined from this survey was that $7,500 per property was invested into fixing it up, and that's for a total of, you know, $9.2 billion per year. Now that's more than the federal government spent.
Wow. Yeah, so
restoring the housing market. So investors do have a big say, and we are very active, even though those kinds of numbers aren't thrown around too frequently for you to, I guess, for us to understand the scope of what we do and how involved we are with this recovery.
No, that's a great point, and I'd like to talk a few minutes about that because, you know, we're hearing about government stimulus, we're hearing about banks bailing people out and all these different things, but isn't it always the truth that the consumer is the one that usually drives us in and out of any kind of recovery? We're the ones that get ourselves in trouble, but we're also the ones that pull our bootstraps up and get back out.
Exactly, and I mean, it's that entrepreneurial spirit that America is known for. It's one of the things I love about America, is that you can get involved, and being an investor has no barriers to entry. Everyone knows what a house is for. You know, we understand the model. So it makes sense, and if you can find deals, fund them, fix them, and sell them, you have a model. Yeah,
isn't that the truth? Or hold them, and we hear from Spear stories all the time, and you hear them all the time too. I mean, why don't you take a minute and just give the listeners a kind of a quick story of someone? I mean, we just heard at your last week. At the meeting, a couple of different stories, but tell the listeners a story of what happens when you're doing your due diligence of someone in the group that found a property in San Francisco and what they paid for it.
Yeah, he's a former Cisco employee, and he's doing real estate investing full-time now, which is something we only recommend once you have a proven track record.
Right.
But anyway, what he did was he had a letter campaign, and somebody called him from San Francisco, and it turned out that he was a carpenter, and he just wanted to, he wasn't living in the property, but he wanted to liquidate it quickly. And the house was worth in the low fives, and our investors said, you know, they talked about what he could do and how much he could pay, and he ended up buying that property in the $250 range. And the seller was happy. He just said he didn't want to go traditionally, he didn't want to sell it, and he wanted the money in a hurry. And you never know what the deal is with people, but if you can perform and you have made those kinds of connections, you can oftentimes get a deal, because divorce are happening, death is happening, things happen in life that make people want to just get out of something quickly for one reason or another. And this is one of those cases. And so this investor shared how he had navigated that. And those are the kinds of things that we share at the SJREI. And we have a meeting coming up on November 20th, and that is entitled Deals Gone Wrong and Right. So we'll be profiling deals that people have gone through and the things they have learned, and how, you know, a changing market impacted them in some way or another, or some wild card or black swan event occurred and caused them to have to, to lose money, and or how they navigated that. And it's one of our favorite meetings of the year because people love to hear those stories.
For those that might be interested in coming for the first time, Geraldine, where would they find out more information about showing up to that meeting and hearing a little bit more?
November 20th is the meeting. It's our Mid-Peninsula chapter meeting, and you can check out the details at sjrei.org. That's sjrei.org.
Okay, and that's the best place to really go online and find information about the meetings and in general about the specifics.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So let's dive in. Let's talk about the exciting news, which we're hearing buzz around the the Bay Area for certainly the 49er Stadium in Santa Clara. Boy, where do we start?
Well, that's a very exciting. I think is very exciting news. And some people were saying to me, "Well, more traffic, more whatever." This is an incredible opportunity for the Bay Area. And I had the pleasure of interviewing Mayor Matthews of Santa Clara for our publication last week, and that deal was the deal of the year in the San Jose Business Journal because of the way it was executed. And one of the things they decided to do was to make sure that all goods were manufactured here in the U.S. in terms of building materials, and they opened 5 or 6 mills throughout the country to manufacture the steel. And so they locked down the labor contracts. Two things that accomplished 2 things. Before the contract, they even began construction. They got the highest quality labor force ahead of all these other big projects, like we have the Apple spaceship and BART. And so by entering into contracts, Mayor Matthews shared with me that it ensured the smooth running of operations, scheduling the workers, giving both sides plenty of security, and that garners high performance and commitment.
This is exciting stuff, and we're going to come back here about another 4 or 5 minutes after this last break, Geraldine. We're going to talk more about this 49er Stadium because it's exciting. I would agree with you 100%. So stick with us. You're listening to Real Estate 360. I am your host, Joe Cucchiara. We'll be back with you to wrap up the show in just a couple minutes.
Your host for Real Estate 360, Joe Cucchiara.
Welcome back in. Thank you for joining us. We're wrapping up the hour here at Real Estate 360. I am your host, Joe Cucchiara, and we are fortunate to be joined today for the entire hour by Geraldine Berry, who's the founder of SJREI. So we have about 4 minutes to go here, Geraldine, as we wrap things up. The 49er Stadium, I want to talk a little more about that. You gave some great statistics. You had a great interview with the mayor. I mean, we were talking off air earlier on what a unbelievable, remarkable occurrence that took place at AT&T Park, Pacific Bell, whatever you want to call it, when it opened up in 2000, and what happened to the entire area, miles around that. I mean, Santa Clara, this is a boon, isn't it, for Santa Clara?
It's a boon, and it was interesting how when they had the 49er team come down to take a look at the area, they took them up on a Ferris wheel ride from Great America so they could see from atop the Ferris wheel what a great opportunity it was. The parking, the locality, and the land that was available. And Joe Montana, as we know, was coming in and building a hotel. And the mayor was laughing. He said to me, Geraldine, for 15 years that was available, that land. And he said it was used as a firing range by local law enforcement. And he said twice the sign was dilapidated and fell over. And he said then suddenly we get this, they manufactured and put that deal together, and they really, I think, they really swooped one up on San Francisco when they executed on that deal. And
they did.
They did. And in terms of the stadium, it's supposed to be one of the greenest buildings, if not in the country, in the world.
Right. Plus, I hear, right here in of course, the heart of Silicon Valley, I understand it's going to be all kinds of wonderful technology, available in this stadium as well. All kinds of wonderful things I'm hearing.
Exactly, and I think that they're a contender now for the 50th Super Bowl in 2016. And so Mayor Matthews is collaborating with San Francisco because that would be a regional thing to draw people in. Because if you look at the Golden Gate Bridge down to the Silicon Valley, I mean, you know, there's nowhere in the world that could have that kind of diversity. And so this is a major win for this area, and I think not just Santa Clara but all the surrounding areas, you know, in terms of cities and San Francisco, all of these will benefit from having a Super Bowl and having this quality of a stadium right here in our backyard.
Well, it really is, and I would say that just this event alone, which is a huge event, doesn't happen every day. Some cities doesn't happen at all, and for us to get it, I am extremely excited. And as an investor, if you're thinking about whether you own property now in the Silicon Valley or you're thinking about it, my gosh, that could do nothing but help the entire surrounding area, not only with jobs but businesses. You're going to see, I'm sure, more and more hotels, high-rise condominiums, you know, apartments, all kinds of different things are going to be driven by this for sure. So, you know, we have about a minute to go here, so I want to thank you for joining us today, Geraldine. And again, tell us once again, if for those that are interested in really soaking up the knowledge of real estate and learning, whether you're, you know, just getting started today as a new investor or you're a seasoned investor, it would be a great thing to go and attend SJREI. Tell us again how to get.
Look at our website, sjrei.org, and reivoice.com is our magazine, and come visit us just one time, and I think you'll be hooked.
Yes, you will. I was. All right, well, Geraldine, thank you so much for your time, and we will be sure to have you back again. So have a great afternoon, and I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Geraldine Berry, founder of SJREI. She was great enough to join us for the hour. It's always great to talk to Geraldine. She's a wealth of information. Again, sjrei.org is the place to visit. This is Joe Cucchiara signing off. We'll see you or hear from you tomorrow. Again, San Jose, here we go. Real Estate 360. We'll be back with you tomorrow at 3 o'clock.
You've been listening to Real Estate 360 on AM 1220 KDOW. For more information on today's program, visit RE360Radio.com. That's RE360Radio.com. AM 1220 KDOW.